Welcome to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast with your hosts, Mike Randall and Gus Kearns.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Screen the Screener College Basketball Podcast, where we're always talking everything college hoops. You could have been anywhere else in the dial, but you chose to be here with us, Mike and Gus. And today we got Chuckie Maggio that's going to tell us a little bit about the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. Chuck, thank you so much for giving us a little time, and thanks for educating the listeners on a team that might make some more noise this season. How's everything going?
Glad to be here, Gus. I think that, the Bonnies, there's definitely a lot of excitement and anticipation around the team. So glad to talk some Bonnies with you.
No doubt. And if you want to give Chuck a follow over on Twitter, please follow him at Chuckie Maggio, Maggio. And don't forget to follow over at PickinSplinters. You'll find all of his St. Bonaventure content over there. All right, Chuck. Last season was pretty special on multiple fronts for the Bonnies and their fans. Do you think you can recap a highlight or two for the listeners and walk us down memory lane? Maybe some of those special moments, games, and events for last season. Just refresh our memories. Just how good was this Bonnies team last year?
Yeah, the Bonnies were expected to be pretty good, but they exceeded even those expectations by winning the first outright regular season championship. They had shared the regular season championship back in 2016, but this was their first all to themselves. The biggest regular season moment, I would have to say, was the VCU game at the Riley Center when they fairly casually erased a 15-point halftime lead and held VCU to 14 points the entire second half. That was the game everyone started to really see that this Bonnies team was better than it had been even the previous two seasons, when a lot of that core was still there at Bonnies. Then they had it was an atypical postseason. The A-10 quarterfinals and semifinals were one again in Richmond, and then the title game was Selection Sunday in Dayton against VCU. They won that with relatively little difficulty. Osunniyi had just a monster tournament, both defensively and offensively. They beat you in the championship game at Dayton. It was a really, really good game. Trendy pick, I would say, entering the NCAA tournament. But they ran into a better LSU team, a big LSU team. Kyle Lofton had one of his worst performances of the season. Other guys were banged up. Other guys didn't shoot well. And that was the end of the run there in Bloomington. But yeah, it was one of the more accomplished seasons in Bonaventure history for sure.
Excellent rundown. And then Chuck, last season was trying for every reason. How did St. Bonaventure and the entire A-10 hold up, and what were some of the unique challenges, COVID specifically, for your squad?
I would say that you never knew for sure if a game was going to happen or not. Bonnies, they started the season with a COVID outbreak. They had supposed to have a pre-season tournament in Mohegan Sun. They had people test positive for COVID, I think, a couple days before that. So that was wiped out. And then they saw their revised season opener against St. Francis. St. Francis had positive tests within the program, so that was canceled a couple hours before. I was driving up to Bonnies from Rochester, and so that just shows you how unexpected that one was. And that's the end of it for Bonnies. But most of the team tested positive, in the days and weeks that followed. They're with each other all the time, so that was that one. But the rest of the A-10, it wasn't as fortunate to get it over with. A decent amount of games were shifted and rescheduled, and then VCU had that unfortunate test during the NCAA before the NCAA tournament, so they had to have a no contest against Oregon, and we didn't get to see Bones Highland on the national stage. So that was a bummer, and it was a challenge for the A-10. Hopefully this year it'll be more of a normal schedule for everybody. We can all agree on that.
Chuck, that's a great point that we didn't get to see Bones on that big stage, because we've seen, unbelievable guards perform at such a high level coming from a quote unquote, not major program, whether it be John Morant with his triple double, whether it be Steph Curry a whole bunch of years back. You're totally correct. Bones probably would have had a special type performance. And that was like the worst part of the COVID influence last year for all of college basketball. The fact that VCU didn't get to take the floor and just compete to keep everybody safe. That was one of the downfalls for sure. One of the pluses, Chuck, is that they gave everybody an extra year, and thus the transfer portal absolutely exploded and became like it became a roller coaster ride. So, the Bonnies dipped in and luckily did not get dipped upon for those 5 starters. Let the listeners know about some of the new faces from far away this season that they can expect to see the floor for the Bonnies.
So, yeah, the Bonnies have always been pretty active with the transfer portal, even before it became a free agent frenzy. But this year they really not only took some junior college transfers, which they've done quite a bit. They got some power reference ACC school program transfers in Quadry Adams from Wake Forest and in Abdul Karim Coulibaly from Pittsburgh. And while Quadry Adams and some of the other players who transferred in might take a little more time, I think we see Abdul Karim Coulibaly pretty frequently this year, because Osunniyi centers are not to play for as many minutes as Osunniyi played season. So I think that he's going to need spots where he gets a natural rest. He's going to need some times where, due to foul trouble, he goes out. And yeah, I think that transfer market and that get by Bonas to get a guy who had started all but 2 games for Pitt last year, I think that could spell could be a real X factor for the team when Osunniyi is not on the floor.
And Osunniyi, as we know, and maybe the listeners will also agree with, is one of the best defensive players in the country. Deflecting at the rim and changing shots at the rim. So the fact that he's not going to have all that responsibility, and you're right, if you're going to bring in a starter from the ACC to come off the bench or be a complement piece, that sounds like they hit the jackpot in the transfer portal. Chuck, can you please give us, the international flavor that is behind the freshman class here? I saw Canada, I saw the Netherlands, Nigeria. Do you think any of these freshmen are going to help those 5 seniors and the transfers that you just mentioned help St. Bonaventure maybe take that next step or really cement themselves in the top 25 all year? Talk about the freshmen a little bit.
It's interesting with this Dutch duo, right? Anouar Malouk and Joriam Sazonu. They knew each other. They were friendly with each other in the Netherlands. They had both trained at the same facility, which is kind of a big deal, that training facility that they work together with in the Netherlands. So Joriam Sazonu, he committed, and then Anouar Malouk was I think still undecided at the time, but Bonas got him, and that goes along with, again, the front court is where we're really going to see the newcomers make an impact, because Kyle Lofton, he's still going to be entrusted to play about 40 minutes. Schmidt doesn't want to take him off the court. He doesn't want to take Dom Welch off the court. He doesn't want to take Jaron Holmes off the court.
Right.
But those front court guys are going to get a chance immediately to come in, to contribute, and to be big pieces of this team. And that Nets duo, they're teaming with athleticism. They just have such interesting measurables. Like, they're just long, lanky guys that can seemingly jump out of the gym. It's going to be really interesting. And all of this is going to be really interesting, especially next season, beyond, for those guys. You're really going to see a big competition once the starting five graduates. You're going to see a real competition for those starting spots, and I think Schmidt and the staff feel that they are set for the immediate future.
It sounds like practice might be pretty competitive. That's what it sounds like.
I wish it wasn't closed for us.
Thank you for the breakdown there. Okay, Chuck, how about the A-10? Of course, there's interest across the schedule. Richmond is similar to your squad, brings a whole bunch of resources back. St. Louis, Davidson is always an issue. VCU, like you mentioned earlier, even George Mason with King English. They're all going to be threats inside the A-10. What matchup do you think is crucial for this squad inside the A-10 that's really going to tell this is back together and we have it back where we want it, or it's at another level, or maybe we have some work to do? What's going to be that game or that matchup or that rivalry that really is going to provide that answer for St. Bonaventure inside the A-10?
There's a couple for sure. Richmond brings almost everybody back, and Richmond is healthier this year. VCU still going to be, I think, very competitive even without Bones, especially if Ace Baldwin recovers quickly. Davidson, I feel like with Davidson is like Bonaventure in the sense that Davidson is going to get better as the season goes along, even though they lost some definite pieces. They lost Kellen Grady. They lost some good, but McKillop, VCU, St. Louis, those teams get better as the year goes on. Part of that is because they played such difficult non-conference schedules that I feel like don't always show the type of caliber that the team actually has when they're losing and their record's kind of mediocre. But this whole conference and yeah, Kim English, I think that Mason fans are really the expectations are very high at Mason. I don't know if the roster quite bears that out yet, but he seems to be a very good coach. And I think that it's going to be just extremely interesting with Richmond, with VCU, with Davidson, and with St. Louis. Travis Ford's going to be out to get some revenge for that semifinal last year. So Bonaventure's definitely has a lot of stiff competition. The bottom is kind of weak in this conference. The middle is kind of uncertain, but the top is really good as always.
As always, and we didn't even mention the Dayton Flyers. I mean, you have to kind of throw them in the mix. Yeah. After what they've done the past 5 seasons, they've been a force inside the conference too. And you mentioned the non-conference, Chuck. How thankful is Coach Schmidt to have those 5 senior starters to navigate a very pivotal non-conference schedule? What are some of the highlights, or what are some of the games that you think that fans could anchor onto, or maybe the casual fan will look up and be like, I didn't know St. Bonaventure was that good. What's one of those games that's going to make somebody think twice and look again at this squad?
Well, I think that the experience is mainly the catalyst for this difficult of a non-conference schedule. I don't think that they would have gotten the game against UConn, the game against Virginia Tech. Those two are definitely the games that the casual fan is going to tune into. Because UConn and Virginia Tech are both supposed to be NCAA tournament teams. The UConn game is on ESPN2. I think the Virginia Tech game might be on an ESPN network as well. Those are the games that that Bonaventure has to win, has to be competitive in if it wants a very high seed in the NCAA tournament. And those are the games that they're part of the UConn game is part of a doubleheader with the UConn women, so that's high profile. Yep. I think there's 4 games before Bona Virginia Tech on that day on December 17th. So these are part of games where the college basketball world will be watching very closely to see what kind of team Bonaventure has and where its place is in the top 25 and in the NCAA tournament this year. So I think those 2 are very big. Charleston Classic is also huge. If Bona and West Virginia take care of business, I personally, as a basketball fan, cannot wait to see the Press Virginia the full court press defense go against Mark Schmidt's pack line defense. It's going to be surreal if that happens with Schmidt versus Huggins, two of the best basketball minds in the game. So Bonaventure has really done a good job of scheduling, and that's all set up by the success that they've had so far with these five seniors.
With no doubt. And you didn't even mention Boise State and maybe even Northern Iowa. But yeah, I think everybody's crossing their fingers that we get that West Virginia St. Bonaventure matchup in that particular tournament. Great call, Chuck. Very good. Okay, let the listeners know. We need to know a prediction from our man on the inside. What in the world? What is the ceiling? How is this St. Bonaventure team going to benefit from having those five seniors, from having Coach Schmidt on the sideline? You mentioned the impact transfers. What is the ceiling for this team? Is this team's going to be playing for seeding all year, right? We're not just playing to get in. We're playing for a high seed.
Wow, put me up for a prediction. Bonaventure have won since the NCAA tournament expanded to 64 teams. Bonaventure hasn't won a game in the round of 64 since that started. They obviously won that first four game against UCLA, which was the first win in the tournament at all, 1970. But I think for Bonaventure fans, the expectation is way higher than that. The expectation is Sweet 16, getting to the Elite Eight. It's going to be sky high expectations. But I think for Bonaventure, a good expectation to start is winning a game in the round of 64, maybe getting to that second weekend, and then seeing what happens, because in March, anything can happen. So I think that the ceiling is probably in that higher echelon. But right now, I think expectations is to win games in the tournament, and then see what happens. Schmidt will never let the players look that far ahead until they're actually there.
And that's why he's had so much success, and that's why he's had so much success with this particular roster. They know what they're going to get in from their coaching staff, and the trust that he must have in those five starters, those senior starters, must be a dream come true as a coaching staff. Chuck, thank you so much. We are thankful to get the background and some intel on the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. That is going to be a team that's going to show up in some preseason top 25s, and rightly so, as Chuck just broke it down for you. Please go ahead and provide Chuck with some feedback, support, and positivity during the college hoop seasons. Follow him over at PickinSplinters, and of course, give him a follow for anything St. Bonaventure related at Chuckie Maggio, Maggio, all lowercase, on that Twitter landscape. Chuck, thank you so much for giving us a little time. Cheers, cilantro, gratulazia, arigato.
You got it. Thank you for your time.